Makeup. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Rabbi Tobin at B'nai Shalom in West Orange, New Jersey. I have a patient group of people in front of me who have been waiting for the last 7 minutes while we finished off an unrehearsed fire drill here. Construction set off the stuff, so we're flying a little by the seat of our pants here to get started, and you'll be with us. Hello.
I just want to tell you, I think on Shabbos you mentioned that when you were young, you used to buy things in little print.
The print on this page is unfortunately very small.
I noticed.
I apologize.
No, and I remember your quote. You know, when you were 26, you bought things with little print. Now
I need bigger print.
You need bigger print.
Right. I will try and do bigger print starting next week. Here you go. Everyone else have one?
No, I don't.
Please, this one goes to Phil, and that's it. Okay, we got up to, where did we get up to? It's been a couple weeks off.
16a.
I have a little petik at 16a. Very good. Chapter 2 of Chagiga, chapter Ein Dorshin, 16a. And Rabbi Abba, who said that one who gazes at a rainbow has no heed for God's honor, the Gemara cites another teaching about gazing at a rainbow. So we were just finishing off the sweep of Gemara before the question of... actually, we skipped Acher, right? We skipped. So we had skipped Elisha ben Abuya, and we are going to just finish off this piece of Gemara until we get to the Mishnah. Then we're going to stop, and we're going to set up what the July special study is, Elisha ben Abuya, etc. Okay, so for those of you who were in class up until last time, we're going to give you the schar, the reward of finishing it. 16a, and it's Darash Rabbi Yehuda Barabi Nachmani Miturgmane Deresh Lakish. So let's see. In the Hebrew, you are in the Hebrew, if you're following in the Hebrew text, there's a long column of Gemara. It's thin, and then it gets fat, and then the last 3 lines are the fattest of all. If you're in the middle fat section and you count down 4 lines, you'll see 2 dots after the first word. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. On the 14th line of the middle length, you see Darash Rabbi Yehuda. 14th line of the middle length lines. You see it? Stand, you're following. So if you look here, what I'm saying is that I'm going to get to the English after the Hebrew. All right? So on a traditional page of Hebrew, you have a narrow part of the column, and then it gets to be a fat part of the column. It goes down to the bottom, and it's fattest of all. In the middle part, count the 14th middle line down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And the second word is Darash. And it says Darash Rabbi Yehuda. Good. All right, so all of the Hebrew people are on one page. Good. Now, in English, we're on one of the pages that says 16a.
What's the top left corner say?
I'm going to let you know in a second. It's the one where the first words are Rabbi Yehuda bar Rab Nachmani, the speaker of Reish Lakish.
Yep, you're about it.
It's the beginning of that page. Okay? That's where we are. Everyone with me? Okay, so it's page 4. It's the back of page 14. If you see the pink writing, you'll see a page 15 next to Hebrew. If you see, do you see written in hand 15 in pink? Next to that.
But I have it. I don't have anything from
Okay. Everyone's got it now. Okay. All right. Now remember, what's happening now is we're finishing off the first Mishnah of chapter 2. The first Mishnah of chapter 2 started with, we can't talk about sexual prohibitions in the presence of 3. We can't talk about creation in the presence of 2. And we can't talk about the Merkava, the divine chariot, which Maimonides understands as metaphysics, and the Talmud has included as some powerful, with almost divine power to harm you, interpretations of Ezekiel chapter 1, where it talks about the vision in the heavens and the divine chariot. And the word that got centered on there was chashmal, right? And there's a point where the description of the image in the heaven that he's seeing is wheels and a chariot and the figure of an image of a person sitting on a throne. And kind of the border point between there's this chashmal, fire that's dancing back and forth across the imagery, and that's the point where above which you don't explain anymore. It's forbidden. It's not forbidden knowledge. It's forbidden study. Ela im kain, the Mishnah says, unless a person is a chacham, a wise one, who understands of his own these things. And then the person who knows it can talk to another person who knows it. But you can't teach a person it.
They have to be able to intuit it?
They both need to be able, one needs to know it and the other needs to have already been able to intuit it. Okay? So then there were multiple stories in the Gemara prior to this of people who were not of that level, children, for example, who intuited it properly while studying and teaching in public, and they got blasted by divine flame right away. So there's a scariness to this, right? Okay, so then the Mishnah ended with a couple of other little things. It says, anybody who speculates on four things, it's better that he not come into the world. What is above, what is below, what is before, what is after. And that again creates a space of space-time within the Torah text. So what is before would be what is before what we're told in the first sentences of Genesis. What is after would be what is after the end of time. What is above the visible heavens, which they would have seen as the divine realm. And what is below the plumbable depths of the earth. And so they saw in space, above and below, and in time, before and after, limits to our knowledge and our experience and our existence, beyond which either it's going to cause you nothing but heartache to study, or if you study, you're wasting your time such that it shouldn't have. You really aren't spending your time like you deserve to have time. You're wasting your time in that sense. So that seems to be what they're talking about. Then it says, whoever takes no thought or honor of his maker, kol shelo chash al kavod kono, anybody who's not concerned with the honor of his, and the rabbinic word for your God in the sense of he's in charge of you, is not El or Shaddai or Elohim or Adonai or any of those words. It's kono, the person who owns you. No, to buy in modern Hebrew, kone, to own, right? So kono is his owner, his master, and God is seen as the one who is ultimately the one to whom belongs everyone and everything. So when we try and create a bit of humility in a person in a rabbinic text, we'll refer to his God as kono. All right? Not to be confused with the rabbinic word that often exists in Mishnah and Talmud, konam, or kona, which is a different word that has to do with a vow that you would take that's basically, if I don't do this, may God smite me. That kind of a vow. And the summary of that vow, rather than writing it in the text, is the word konam, which they'll use as shorthand for that. Why don't they write out the whole vow? How is Talmud studied? Orally. If you read the words, you've said the vow. Right? So they will never write out something that you're not allowed to say. Because by studying it, they will make you say it. Right? So the rabbinic system has this konam, which is a word that means that kind of a vow. Not to be confused with kono, the one who owns him, meaning God. Okay? So, yep, questions? Anyone remembering any of this?
Does kono mean humility? Or
No.
it's
Kono means his owner.
the owner?
His owner. Kono. Hakone shalo. Okay? Hey on the end of a root in Hebrew drops when you get a suffix, because hey is a weak letter. So the root is kuf, nun, hey. And the hey is dropped with the suffix vav, meaning his. So kono. That's for all of those of you who like grammar. And for everyone else, I promise it's over now. Whoever takes no thought for the honor of his maker is an interesting translation which the Sansino has put in front of you. Kol shelo chash al kavod kono. Does not worry about the honor of his owner. It were a mercy if he had not come into the world. Not an exact translation of our Mishnah. Do you remember the exact language of the Mishnah? Let's get it exactly. These are the things I would have put exactly in front of me with a little petik. Ooh, you guys have studied a lot. Look at all the pages we're going through.
It were a mercy if he had not come into the world.
It were a mercy had he not come into the world. I kind of like that. V'chol shelo chas al kavod kono, ratui lo shelo ba le'olam. And ratui is a weird word. We think it has to do with ratsui, has to do with whether it's desirable. Shelo ba le'olam, that he had not come into the world. Preferable that he should not have come into the world. So anybody who does not concern himself or worry about the kavod of God as his owner, it's better that such a person not come into the world. And we interpreted that at the time as a couple of things. Either it's a complete condemnation of the person, that they're a waste of a human life, better he should never have been created, or there was a psychological empathy that some people interpreted this with, which is, oy vavoy, the poor guy is going to drive himself nuts with these thoughts constantly. He's going to get no sleep. He's not going to eat well. He's going to be fidgety. He'll never find love. He's got all this stuff going on in his head, worrying about things that he has no control over, and he'll never have rest and peace in life. And it'll be better that his life, he doesn't fit in the world. Ratui lo shelo ba le'olam. Okay? I think that's a very nice, warm, fuzzy, modern interpretation. I think the rabbis are probably saying the former. Okay? Good. So in the category of people who do not worry about the kavod of their maker, we had very quickly, what kind of a person is this? Mahi, up a few lines on the page before. Rabbi Abba said it refers to a person who gazes at a rainbow. Rav Yosef had said it refers to a person who commits a sin in secret. So these are people who do not worry about the honor of their maker. For the first view, it's mistakel b'keshet, person who gazes at a rainbow. Dichtiv, because it is written, kemar hakeshet asher yihye be'anan b'yom hageshem, like the appearance of a rainbow that would be in a cloud on a rainy day. Ken mar'eh ha'noga saviv, so the appearance of the brilliance all around. Hu mar'eh demut kavod Adonai, this was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. So they've gone back actually to our Ezekiel text, a vision of the Merkavah, later in the same chapter, where the brilliance and the colors of the flashing stuff, which earlier we know was chashmal, is referred to here as well as like the brilliance of a rainbow. And so the end of the chapter is bringing that original Merkavah prohibition back to this worry about God thing. That was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of God. Right? So if you focus on the rainbow, instead of focusing on the God it's supposed to be indicating, then it's better you should not come into the world. That's what that interpretation is saying. Right? This is the problem with symbols. Like, let me ask you a question. In Judaism, there's a long-running argument about the cross in Christianity and whether or not it would be a forbidden, like an idol, right? For, that kind of a thing. And the argument from the Christian side is, how literal are you? It's a symbol. Obviously, it's not the God. Even the cross with the Jesus still on it in the Catholic Church is obviously not the God, they would say. It's a symbol, right? So the problem is when our symbols become the thing, right? If the symbol becomes the thing. We open the ark in synagogue on Saturday morning. What do? Stand up. I take the Torah out and I walk around the room. What do? Talk about the Kiddush. What are you supposed to do? So people first never turn their back on it. Wherever it is in the room, you turn around and face it. You wind up doing a complete 360 depending on which section you sit in. right? And when it comes within reach of you, people will take their talit or their finger or their siddur and they will touch it and they will kiss it and move on. Why is that not idolatry?
We consider it the word of God, not God,
So why are you kissing it?
out of respect.
Okay.
We're respecting, but we're not
Symbol.
worshiping it.
It's getting pretty close because, what do we say about, people who are very uncomfortable with the cross with the Jesus on it or the statues in the church? What do we say? They go over, they bow down to it, they kiss it, they...
Light a candle.
We light candles in shul.
Yeah, but some people actually pray to this.
But it's a symbol, right? They're not really praying to the statue. They're praying to what the statue represents, right? So we don't have as much of it. It's not as problematic for us. That's one of the only examples I have actually for Judaism because we've excised almost all of that from the tradition. But when the symbol is distracting enough that you're actually focused on the thing, the rabbis are very upset. Can you think of another example? Mezuzah. All the touching of the mezuzah. Why are you touching a mezuzah? Because it's a little piece of a Torah. So it's the same thing.
I have a cousin who lives in Jerusalem. He won't go to the Kotel anymore because he says that the Kotel's the foundation. That is not where we go to.
The Kotel's not the Beit HaMikdash, so
It's
why
not
should
the-
it be seen as holy?
Right, and I told him it's a 2,000-year-old symbol. It's no.
The
nobody
Kotel is a
wants
symbol.
to-
And what is it a symbol of drives a lot of modern political religious controversy at that site.
yeah,
What
and
it is a symbol of. It is a symbol of the gathering of all of the people, or is it a symbol of a particular kind of religion being done in this place?
I think it's a symbol that's kept like Judaism together next here in Jerusalem. He
So it's a
says-
symbol of Jerusalem, which is a symbol of Jewish unity, hope, and aspiration.
And he doesn't go to him. He says it's...
This is the problem with symbols, is that people will argue over what they mean. Symbols are a convenient way to argue over differences of opinion, right? And if you have symbols in common, but the meaning is not in common, you really get into conflicts.
But
right?
there's a whole group who feel that way, and they want to rebuild it to the temple.
It's not a far shot from here to there. Okay, so in this case, it's the rainbow. I mean, it seems like a strange piece of Gemara. Rabbi Abba said the person who doesn't worry about the glory of his God is the one who looks at a rainbow. That makes no sense.
Right.
And in the context of this chapter, it would make no sense, except for the proof text that's used to describe what he's teaching is a proof text where the rainbow is part of the image of the chariot. And the chariot is the topic of our text. And the forbidden what can you or can't you talk about and expound on in the image of the chariot. And the rainbow's on the wrong side of the image. So mistakel bekeshet here I don't think means to look at a rainbow. I mean mistakel is from sechel, meaning to intellect. And mistakel is the act of an individual intellecting themselves about the keshet rainbow part of the image of the Merkavah, which is on the wrong side of the prohibition line. I think that's what Rabbi Abba is doing here. So this is a classic case where you can read the words, and I know what those words mean, and I know what those words mean, but you have to put it back into the context and say, why are those words here? Those words are here to reinforce the prohibition in the Mishnah about studying the Merkavah beyond the Chashmal, because beyond the Chashmal is anthropomorphic imagery of God. And anthropomorphic imagery of God is dangerous, because our God is not anthropomorphic. Right? So once
Anthropomorphic mean?
anthropomorphic means in the image of man, in the form of man. Okay? So we don't have a God who is in the form of man. So we have lots of images in the Torah that use anthropomorphisms, like God has a strong arm, strong hand and an outstretched arm, strong hand and an outstretched arm. I beat you to my own correction, but I thank you for the support. Right? Or God is yiharaf, he flares his nostrils, which is the Hebrew phrase for became angry. Right? These are images that are anthropomorphic.
How about he created man in the image?
He created man in his image, even more so. right? But does that mean that God has a big toe? Great children's book. You should read it to your grandchildren.
My first husband never said Anim Zero because of the
Anim Zmirot is pagan Kabbalah. What can I do? You do know that Kabbalah is pagan, right? What?
You have to have it in the service.
But people like the tune. You don't need to have 90% of what's in the Siddur in the service. If you want to wake up and do what you're supposed to do, it's a bunch of brachas, the Shema with its blessings, read the Torah, study the Haftarah, quick daven a musaf, and go eat. The service would last about 20 minutes. What you have to do is 20 minutes, but there's poetry in there. There's a lot of stuff in there that adds to it. And why? Kavod kono. You do it for the glory of God on the day of creation. That's what it is. Okay. In any event, so the other interpretation, so the first interpretation was Rabbi Abba. Rav Yosef said it's ha'oved avera baseter, the one who commits a sin in secret. Okay, how is that somebody who is not worried about the honor of their Creator?
Well, he believes that God can't see what he's doing.
Believes that God can't see, or doesn't care that God can see. He cares about what the neighbors think more than what God thinks. It's my favorite line from Yentl, right? Yentl's father, before teaching her Talmud, closes the windows and the shutters, and she asks him, Abba, if God doesn't mind that I study Talmud, why do you close the windows? He says, God doesn't mind, I'm not so sure about the neighbors. Right? So if you can't do it in public, you probably shouldn't do it in private. If it's forbidden. And if it's permitted, then you should bring that to the public sphere. Right? So if you're doing an Avera in secret, because you know it's a sin, and you'll do it in secret, knowing it's a sin, you're obviously not chas al kavod kono. You're not worried about the glory of God. Because you're created in the image of God, you know about the Torah, you know about the mitzvot, you know that you're in God's image, you know that everything you do reflects on the image of God that's created within you, and you're doing it because you want to. Right? You're fully mu'ad, you're completely informed, you've been forewarned, you know everything about it, and you're doing it in secret because you don't care about God. Because you're never alone. You wouldn't do it in front of your mother because you love your mother. Right? But you do it in front of God, you obviously don't love God as much as you love your mother. Or you're not as afraid of God as you are afraid of your mother. Either way. Right?
Because the punishment is immediate.
The punishment from mom is much more visible. May not last as long. All right. Next. So Rav Yosef says it refers to one who commits a sin in secret. Rav Yosef accords with the view of Rabbi Yitzchak. For Rabbi Yitzchak said whoever commits a sin in secret is as if he pushes away the feet of the divine presence, as it is written, and heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. So if I'm corrupting the earth down here, I'm kicking the footstool out away from God. Okay? Everyone with me so far? All right. And then it said, Ini, isn't it better? Like, really? You want people sinning in public? Why not let them sin in private? If a person sees that his evil inclination is overwhelming him, he should go to a place where they do not recognize him. This is a teaching. This is a Talmudic teaching. Elah the elder said, if a person can't control his evil inclination, he should go to a neighborhood where he'll see nobody he's ever met before, and he should clothe himself in black and wrap himself in black, and he should do what his heart is making him do, but not desecrate the name of God openly. So he should hide who he looks like. He should dress completely in an unrecognizable fashion and go to a city, town, or neighborhood where nobody would ever know who he is and do what it is he's doing. It won't reflect on anybody else at least.
Las Vegas.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What?
I don't know what it says. Don't do it in your own nest.
Don't, let's come up with the right word. Don't soil where you live. How's that? Don't soil where you live. Don't soil your own community, your own family, and so forth. What this says is about your ability to go to another community and behave in what is obviously considered an immoral and unethical fashion, and that you have a lack of concern for its influence on that community. Remember, the rabbis are living in a time where all the things that are forbidden are being commonly done by non-Jews around them all the time. So the idea that you would go and pollute that neighborhood with that behavior is ridiculous. That neighborhood is already full of that behavior.
Isn't that a form of exile?
Self-exile.
Self-exile.
Yeah, you cut yourself out from your people to go there. Look, there are people who live dual lives, right? They have their home, their family, their business, their public reputation, and then they've got this thing that has power over them, that comes from the Yetzer Hara, and they have an outlet for it. And whether that's a mistress or an obsession or an addiction or whatever the pathology is that that person is doing in their secret life, right? What's happening here is that Ila Hazaken is trying to say, if it's going to happen anyways, better it happen over there that way than it rip the fabric of the community. I'm not saying I agree with Ila the elder. I'm just trying to explain his point of view. Right? Do we want to take a straw poll without names? Do people think that this is a good thing to teach? Would you teach people to find an outlet? Or would you teach people to find a way with therapy, openness, honesty, and transparency? Which are not the same thing, by the way. Like, therapy is so you're not completely transparent, I would presume. It's a safe place to deal with things. I don't know. I'm not a therapist.
Well, one of the things, when I'm teaching about ethics in a general way to the kids, the way I talk about it with them is it's doing what's right, whether or not anybody's looking and whether or not anyone would know.
Whether or not anybody is looking and whether or not anyone would know. That's correct. Right.
And that's how teaching for the preschoolers. They need to figure that out.
In the internet world, any chance I get to teach a kid or to train a new employee, I always tell them, everything that you do and absolutely every picture taken and every word written, whether it be a Snapchat, whether it be a handwritten card, which they don't know what that is, or whether it be an email, they barely know what email is, you need to do that presuming that that will show up on the front page of the New York Times tomorrow morning. The text and the picture. And if you're not comfortable with that being there, don't do it. Right? Because it will be there. And we found these kids coming out of college now that all their employers are Googling them. When you apply for jobs, the employers are taking the resume and they're putting it into a search and they're getting the Facebook pictures and they're getting the Snapchat picture. They're getting everything that you had a picture taken of while you were in college.
And tweets.
And they'll get your tweets, they'll get everything that was put out there into the public feed in any way, and the employer's going to see how you've been living and what you've been saying and doing for the last 4 years. People wonder why these kids aren't getting jobs.
So I'm seeing three really powerful things going on here. First of all, there's an acknowledgement that the Yetzer Hara can take over.
Yes.
And it was at
The
a
Yetzer Hara
time,
may be undeniable
Yeah.
in some people.
and it was a time before psychotherapy and before medication and before
Sure.
all of the modalities that we have today to regard that kind of situation. Number two, it prescribes some pretty evident, severe actions, positive actions on the part of this individual, or actually true, one is removal, to go into another place, but the wrapping oneself in black
Right.
is the actual physical self-concealment is a really powerful psychological symbol.
Right.
It is really very affecting. And number three, you're walking down the street in this new town, you see somebody all wrapped in black. How eager are you going to be to engage with that individual?
Maybe a town full of people wrapped in black.
Well,
So let's talk
you know,
about Las
that's-
Vegas.
That's possible.
Right?
Right.
And I don't mean that just as a joke.
Yeah,
The
sure.
latest Las Vegas ad that I saw was a montage of the same woman dressed 20 different ways, 20 different hairstyles, 20 different clubs, 20 different musics, doing all this kind of, grinding and dancing and enjoying in the clubs of Las Vegas. And the first time you see the first like 2 or 3 images, the woman was so starkly different in such a different place. I thought it was 3 different women. And then I realized as the ad went on, this is one woman taking on profoundly different personas and placing herself in context with those personas are normal. And they're completely different contexts. And then it was Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Right? What's the message? Right? And is that good or is that bad? I've gone to Vegas. I like Vegas. I dress like this.
Like everybody else.
Right. Yes. Then again, I don't go to all the clubs that were in the commercial either. Going to the dark side. Luke. Well, it's more like visiting. It's visiting the dark side. I mean, there's a sense of a catharsis here, I believe. There's a control because of the dressing. There's a control because of the positive action being prescribed for the person to take. Get up, go, dress, act. Right? That's gaining control of the catharsis, channeling the catharsis into a prescribed manner, because we don't just have non-halachic day in Judaism, right? No matter how much fun Purim may be. Purim is not non-halachic day. There's still mitzvahs for Purim. So it channels it, but on the other hand, it allows for the catharsis.
It seems to me like, okay, you got the 10 Commandments because people will do those things, whatever they are, and they're telling you it's a sin to do those things. So the rabbis are saying, okay, you got the 10 Commandments, but if you're not going to listen to them anyway, go hide so nobody will know. They're telling
Well,
you to
here's the question. The Rabbi Yosef has not told us what he is or is not allowed to do while he's there. So presumably adultery is still adultery. Still a death penalty offense. Right? So it says Yetzer Hara. It doesn't say Porek et ha'ol, meaning abandon the system of mitzvot. So I think you have to say that the rabbis are saying you can do the Yetzer Hara stuff out there that's not like Isur Midoraita, forbidden by the Torah. So an unmarried man could go and be licentious.
Even a married man.
A married man really can't. Well, for them they could, not in our community, not since Takanat Rabbeinu Gershon. So a man cannot go and be with other women. In Talmudic times, that was a form of marriage. You could have multiple wives. Yeah.
Yes, but they had multiple wives.
Okay. So I think that there's a fine line here between what's the Yetzer Hara thing. You need the text? What's the Yetzer Hara thing and what would still not be accepted there. I don't think it's an all bets are off situation. Not for the rabbis. Okay. So we caught up. Okay? The solution to that was La Kashya, no problem. That's not a problem. Ela, the elder's statement, does not pose a difficulty to Rav Yosef's view. Rather, because remember Rav Yosef said you can't commit sins privately, and then somebody else said it's better you should go and do that. And the solution is Ha dematze kayef leitzrei. One was where the secret sin is worse than the public sin, in which that's a person is able to subdue the inclination, but chooses not to do so. And ha dela matze kayef leitzrei, and the other one is not able to lichof et yitzro. He's not able to conquer his evil inclination. So it's better that you should not commit sins in private, but for the guy who absolutely cannot stop himself and is going to do it, Ela is the one saying better you should go over there and do it in that way. Okay? I don't know if that's really a la kashya. I think that the difficulty remains after that resolution, but I don't know what else you're going to say. You can't say Ela Hazakain did not teach this. He did. So you have to figure out when did he teach it. That's probably your best answer. Okay.
The black outfit sounds like it would be a guilt thing. You're punishing yourself.
Yeah, they don't have him like dress in bright colors and feathers. You know, the black outfit is coming for a purpose. Yeah.
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 To yourself.
All right. Darash Rabbi Yehuda bar Rabbi Nachmani meturgamei de Reish Lakish. So Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Nachmani, who is the translator, the Meturganam of Reish Lakish, explains the following way. Kol ha'mistakel b'shlosha davarim einav kechot. Okay, hot. Whoever gazes at three items, his eyes grow dim. So, bakeshet, uvanasi, uvakohanim. The rainbow, the prince, or the kohanim. Each of these items in some way carries God's glory. And so if you look directly at the sun, you are blinded. If you look at these directly, you will have your eyesight harmed. And there's going to be a series of scriptural things to back this up. Bakeshet, one gazes at a rainbow, as it is written, Kamareya keshet asher yeh be'anan bayom hageshem, like the appearance of the rainbow that would be in a cloud on a rainy day. Hu mar'eh demut kavod Adonai, it's like the appearance of the glory of God. So that's now been proven to be the appearance of the glory of God is in the keshet. Remember, however, that's from Ezekiel. That's the Merkavah. That's not the rainbow that you see after a storm, which you're supposed to look at and say a brecha on. Different. The Nasi, looking directly at a prince in your generation, Dichtiv, it is written, V'natata me'hodecha alav, you shall place your majesty upon him, and this is talking to Joshua, who is referred to as Nasi and Nagid in different texts. At his word they shall go out, and his word they shall come in. And the Mr. Kappa Kohanim, if you look at the Kohanim, this is Bizman Beit HaMikdash Kayam, in the time that the temple worship was functioning, Shahayu Omdim Al Duchanan, when they were up there duchaning. They were on the Duchan, Umivarchim et Yisrael B'Shem HaMefarash, and they're blessing the name of Israel with the four-letter name of God, as they did the hand signals, and they said, Yivarecha Adonai V'Yishmerecha. So, did any of you grow up in a tradition where you were told not to peek at the Kohen when they were giving the blessing? And what did they tell you?
You have to fast for 40 days.
If you look at them, you have to fast for 40 days? Who else was told something?
Well, I don't remember a punishment like that, but my father certainly forbid me.
Don't look.
Yeah.
Don't look.
Covered me with a towel.
You're supposed to turn around.
You'd be blind in one eye. Is that what you were told?
No, but I heard it somewhere.
Yeah, I heard it somewhere. So the blind in one eye is closest to the Talmudic source. If you look at them while they're duchening, blessing you, your eyesight will be harmed. I don't know where the 40-day thing comes from. But they're saying, but Bizman Shebet HaMikdash Kayam, in the time of the temple worship service in Jerusalem, from the pulpit up there, them doing it for real. That's the time you're not allowed to look. In the meantime, we have the custom where they cover their hands with the talis, just in case you do look. Right? So your father covered you, and they covered them, and everybody was covered. Did you ever look anyways?
What?
Did you look anyways?
Sure.
There's a running argument. What's more enticing, a parka or a bikini? Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rav Nachmani, the spokesman of Reish Lakish, also said, now that we're talking about this guy, we're going to get another thing from him. My dichtiv, what is the meaning of when it is written? Al ta'aminu be're'a al tivtechu be'aluf. Don't trust a friend and don't rely on an official. And the end of the pasuk is guard the doorways of your mouth from the one who lies in your heart. Im yomar l'cha yetzer hara, if the evil inclination says to you, chato, sin, v'hakadosh baruch hu mochel, because God will forgive you, right? Al ta'amin, don't believe it. Shneimar, al ta'amin be're'a ve'ein re'a ela yetzer hara. So it's a pun. So they're going to use the saying, what is the meaning of the verse? Don't believe in your re'ah, your neighbor, and don't trust in an aluf, an official. It's being re-understood as if the yetzer hara, which has the same letters as re'ah, ra'ah, neighbor and evil, right? So if the yetzer hara tells you to do something, don't believe him, because of the verse it says, don't believe the re'ah. Ve'ein re'ah ela yetzer hara. And re'ah only means yetzer hara. So now I'm wondering whether don't bring the pasuk, love your re'ah as yourself. Wouldn't really fit with the same interpretation, would it? Love your neighbor as yourself wouldn't work. Okay, Shneimar, as it is written, ki yetzer lev adam ra. From the beginning man's heart is evil. Ve'ein aluf ela hakadosh baruch hu. There is no official or aluf other than the Holy One. The word aluf only refers to the Holy One. Blessed is he. Shnei Amar, aluf ne'urayata, you are the master, the aluf of my youth. Shema tomar, Mi me'id bi, perhaps you would ask, wrongly ask, lest you should ask, who will testify against me if I do a private sin? Remember, that's the topic, right? Avnei beito, the stones of your own house. V'karot beito shel adam, the beams of your own house. Hem me'idin bo, they will testify. The walls have ears. The beams have eyes. You're in the presence of things that see you do it. And they can testify. And how do we know this? Shnei Amar, because there's a verse. Of course, there's a verse. This is in Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 11. Ki even mekir tidzak v'chafim me'etz ya'anena. For the stone will cry out from the wall, and a chip from the beams will testify to it. Which is a common thing. Even Moses in Parshat Ha'azinu talks about the heavens and the earth testifying against you. Right? The world sees. It's God's world. God, like everything in the world is a microphone and a camera for God. Okay? Now the Gemara is going to go on and try and reinterpret that last point. The Chachamim Omrim, but the sages say, Nishmatu shel Adam me'ida. His own soul testifies. Me'ida bo. Testifies regarding him. Shnei Amar, as it is written, and now the prophet Micha, Mishochevet chekecha shemor pitchei picha. The guard the doorways of your mouth, and the one who lies in your heart or in your chest. Ezohi davar sheshochevet becheiko shel adam. And what is the thing that lies closest in a person's heart or chest or bosom? Have omer zo neshama. One would say it can only be his soul. So the verse which says, guard the doorways of your mouth for the one who lies in your heart, would be interpreted as guard the doorways of your mouth from the testimony of your own soul. Rabbi Zerika, Omer, Shnei Malachei Hasharet Milavim Oto, 2 ministering angels escort a person from where to where? When you die, to judgment on high. Hen Me'edim Bo, and they testify against a person, Shnei Amar, Kol Malachav Yitzavei Lach L'shmorcha B'chol Derachecha, for he will charge his angels concerning you to observe or guard you in all of your ways, meaning they're your like prison guards, they're your guards taking you to the court, not just your protective guards. V'chachamim v'yesh omrim, there are those who say, Evarav shel adam me'edim bo. The second angel is all of his sins, or all of his limbs, not avera, but all of his limbs with an aleph, all of his, his body parts. Shnei Amar. V'atem edai ne'um Adonai v'ani el. You are all my witnesses, the word of God. I am God. So, in other words, you can't get away. There's no such thing as private sin. So the Gemara ends with this concept that you should not be sinning in private. That you're held accountable for everything, and that your soul, your deeds, your body, your house, everything is always there to constantly have a record of what you've done.
Yeah, but this touches on afterlife, which the Gemara doesn't much deal with, does it?
Gemara deals with afterlife all the time.
All your limbs, the stones and all that, when you die, all that happens.
And there's judgment, and there's Olam Haba. Gemara is based in a belief in Olam Haba for sure. It's a core teaching of Rabbinic Judaism from the Mishnah to the Gemara, that there's a life after death, and that you'll be held accountable for it.
Okay. I didn't know.
Absolutely. The rabbis, actually, when they say, chapter 10 of Sanhedrin in the Mishnah, Yesh chelik ba'olam haba, Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelik ba'olam haba, chutz meh, everyone has a place in the world to come except for, and then a series of egregious sinners. The one who says that resurrection of the dead's not in the Torah, it's one of them. There's a few others like that. The Torah is not from heaven. So they believe in world to come, and they believe in judgment to get there.
Is that how Jewish guilt started?
Jewish guilt was there a long time before that. Long time before that. Okay, now.
Is the premise that man is born with evil inclinations, and then we have this?
We're born with the natural ability. No, we're not born evil. Although the text that got quoted here, the verse, which is it says the heart of man is evil from his youth. That's a Torah text. That's why God's going to get rid of everybody at the flood of Noah, because the heart of man is evil from his youth, and corruption has filled the world. But Noah ish tam b'doro, but Noah was a pure man in his own generation. So you have both. You have the ability to be evil. You have the ability to be completely good. That's natural to the human condition. We don't believe in evil outside of the human that leads us to evil. That's a non-Jewish belief. We believe that latent ability to do evil is within us. But evil does not have its own existence. It's something that we choose, something we can do. Yeah.
So if they believe in world to come, what's the theory, or party line, however you want to say it, how we got there?
How we get to the world to come? So what do you have to do to get your ticket punched?
Well, besides getting dead.
Well, dying is a qualifying characteristic. Because of that, I'm not eager to find the other qualifying characteristics.
Is it life after death?
The low bar from the Mishnah that I quoted a moment ago is that as long as you believe in the basic concepts of Judaism, which is God, Torah, and that there is a resurrection of the dead that comes from the Torah, you'll get there.
So it is seen as a resurrection. That's really what my question is.
The rabbinic system is based in physical resurrection of the dead as a belief system. That's one of the distinguishing characteristics of the Pharisees as opposed to the Sadducees and the Zealots and the Essenes, according to Josephus, and confirmed by rabbinic teachings. There's nothing rabbinic teachings to argue against that. It seems like a pretty good description. So in Second Temple times, one of the major Judaisms was Pharisaic Judaism, whom we call the rabbis. Chachmenu zichronam livracha, Chazal. They believed in physical resurrection of the dead for the righteous. The reason they believe that is there's a line in the book of Daniel that says there will come a time when those who sleep in the dust will arise again, some to eternal bliss and others to centuries of torment.
That's only if Mashiach comes.
Mashiach doesn't exist in the book of Daniel. Mashiach is a later teaching that gets grafted onto that kind of Mashiach. So, and yes, that's common Judaism today. But historically, the development of those ideas were separate, and you had the belief in the resurrection of the dead. And what's interesting is, contrary to the modern conflated theory that resurrection of the dead only happens to the righteous, Daniel has resurrection of the dead for everybody, and boy, are you going to get what's coming to you. Right? And in the meantime, there's nothing that happens to you while you're in the grave. That's Daniel. So the rabbis pick that up and they talk about resurrection of the dead, and they back off resurrection of the dead for bad people. They have that as going down to the pit of Sheol, the pit of death and darkness, and that maybe they don't resurrect. And by Middle Ages, Rambam and others make it only the righteous dead have another chance at life. But it's physical life, which makes no scientific sense. It's never happened before. You can't get your head around it. And like some of you have heard me say before, I'm going to go with that because I've given permission to hope that I get to kiss my grandmother's cheek again. And boy, what I would give for that. You know? So, yeah.
If you're physically resurrected, is it in the same body? And is it at the same age or a different age?
Do I get my arm back if I lost it in the war? If I was born without front teeth, do I get front teeth? Do I get to have blue eyes?
That's like an Isaac Asimov story.
There's Rambam dismisses all the physical postulation about the world to come as a physical resurrection, saying because it is a miracle that is not based in any scientific experience that we have had, there is no rational, logical way for us to even begin to talk about it. It will be whatever it is. It doesn't fit anything that you're thinking about today except for one thing. It has to be you the way you are, whatever that means. Otherwise, it's not you. So there are those, for example, who say you get resurrected and live forever. How does that work? Do we reproduce?
Where are they going to put all the people?
Well, who are the new people? Do those people never get a chance at resurrection because they were born after the resurrection? Doesn't make like those things make no sense. Rambam believes that you get resurrected, you'll live, and you'll die. Because God doesn't abrogate nature, miracles break nature for a moment, and then nature crashes right back in with its rules. He splits the sea, he lets go, and it's a sea again. It's not like now there's a tunnel that will go through it for all time. He doesn't break the laws of nature permanently. He'll suspend them for the miracle, and then they come back, which means, this is why people shouldn't be buried in mausoleums, because they'll drop 16 feet onto marble and break their heads and die. When you get resurrected, look both ways before you cross the street.
Do they believe in the devil?
Don't smoke.
And do they believe in the devil or hell.
They believed in shadim, like dibuks, stuff like that. There were rabbis in the Talmud who definitely believed that there were evil forces in the world, but not that they were like they're themselves evil. And Talmud has cleaned all that out. Almost all of that's been cleaned out.